Good evening. I will now call the Nicholas Municipal Drain 2025 quarter revision to order. May I have a mover and seconder? That's moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Councillor Cressman, that the quarter revision for the Nicholas Municipal Drain 2025 convenes at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, May 27th, 2025. I will now call the vote. All in favor? That carries unanimously. And now we will move on to the appointment of the chair. Would anyone like to chair this meeting or nominate a chair? Okay, Councillor Cressman. Okay, can I have a mover and a seconder to appoint Councillor Cressman? That is moved by Councillor Dunstall, seconded by Deputy Mayor Smith, that Councillor Cressman will be appointed as chair, and he will assume those duties at 6:02 p.m.
Poor chair has to be told when to use the microphone. I will now read the land acknowledgement. We had gathered in Wilmot Township on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Mississauga peoples. We also want to acknowledge the importance of the Dish with One Spoon Covenant, a peace agreement made between Indigenous nations before the Europeans arrived. It characterizes our collective responsibility to each other and Mother Earth. We should take only what we need and leave enough for others and keep the dish clean. By acknowledging this covenant and the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, we are reminded of our important connection to this land where we live, learn, and work together as a community. So now I would like to ask if there's any member that has a disclosure of pecuniary interest, they would like to declare it now. Seeing none, I would now move to the engineer's report. I would invite the project engineer Curtis McIntyre of K Smart and Associates to present a brief overview of the engineer's report.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I don't know if there will be any appeals, but I'll explain how the rationale works for doing assessments on a project like this with the Drainage Act. So first off, starting off, the total project cost is $830,000 for this Nicholas Drain. At the last meeting that John Quincy presented at, the first and second bylaw was passed. First and second reading of the bylaw was passed, which then keeps the design of the drain in place the way that it was done in the report. So $830,000 is the total cost of the project. And then we have to break that out into benefit and outlet assessments. You might have heard this before, that the two main terminologies used for assessments are benefit and outlet. Benefit can be kind of described as tangible improvements or tangible value improved to a land for the drain being there. The drain going through a property or a road or reaching a property or road provides value to the property for having an outlet or improved drainage through the farm. So that is the definition of benefit. Outlet assessment is based on the total watershed. If you are in that watershed and your rainwater lands on your property, drains off your property, and is collected by the system or otherwise would go through somebody else's property, you are considered an outletting property into the drain. Everyone who is inside the watershed receives an outlet assessment, and that outlet assessment is proportional to the size of the property. So property that is 20 hectares will have an outlet assessment twice that of another one that is 10 hectares, other than slight adjustments we make for bushlands which retain water more, or roads which shed water faster, and we adjust the area up. Those are the two main categories. The one final other one is special assessment. Special assessment in the Act takes otherwise what a drain would cost and any increased cost for a utility being present there, that increased costs are directly associated and assessed to that utility. So that being, the main one is roads, in this case it's roads. But in other cases where there are gas lines or any other utility, if there is cost increase to the project that wouldn't have been there if you were just doing a tile through the field, but then you had to cross a gas line, it costs more money, you have to cross the road, costs more money, that cost, the increased cost gets assessed directly to the utility, and that is a definition basically right in the act. It's not really something that we as the actual the engineers make a whole lot of subjective opinion on. That is pretty clear cut. So skipping ahead, out of $830,000 of cost, the biggest part of this job, there are 8 road crossings on this job. John might have mentioned that in the meeting before. We have to, because of the mess of roads in this area, we have to cross Oxford Road 3 times, Bean Road twice, Diamond Road once, and 19th line in East Sora twice as well. 19th line is gravel road, so we are open cutting those a little bit cheaper than the paved roads. The intent and discussions with Public Works at Wilmot is that we're not going to disrupt the roads. We're going to bore the pipes under the roads. A little bit more costly, but the increased cost added to the job because of those 8 road crossings is $182,000. So if you take the total amount of the project, $830,000, you take $182 off the top, and they are directly applied to each of the different road entities. After that, then we look at benefit assessment. For my reports, I kind of look at 3 different categories. In standard improved direct outlet benefits, so if a new drain reaches your property and you can now connect your subsurface drainage or anything into that drain, you get a single $3,000 assessment benefit onto your property. Additionally, subsurface surface area is another benefit assessment that I use. So larger lands that can tile more of their land, I consider that a greater benefit than a smaller property just getting a $3,000 assessment. So a $750 per hectare charge, a benefit is applied to every property that has the drain connected to it. And the last one is improved drainage along the drain. So the longer the drain runs through someone's property, there is an increased benefit because that drain is draining all along the route of the drain through the property. And it varies, that rate varies. It's a $1 per meter rate, and it varies based on the size. Obviously, bigger tile sizes cost a lot more than small tile size, but basically that rate varies from $30 per meter, the smallest, to like $95 per meter is the biggest, down at the bottom end. So those are the 3 different benefit rates, benefit assessments that I apply to the different properties that have the drain on their property or reach their property. In total, the benefit, that amounts to a total of $390,000. So you take that off of the $830,000, and what you have left is what we proportion as outlet assessment. So what's left then is the rest of the cost is just spread out to the properties based on your area in the drain. So it's a rate of how many total hectares we have in the watershed, how many your property hectares are, and then we proportion the rest of that. $258,000 is proportioned as outlet costs. So those are the 3 assessments categories that make up the drain. And then everyone has their assessment in the schedule. And one other thing I'll mention is that it has nothing to do with this, but grant comes off of people's assessment from there if they have the farm property tax class. There's $175,000 of grant on this project that would be applied for by the municipality at the end of the job. So it kind of gives an overview of how we do the assessments. There's a lot more nitty-gritties than just that. That's kind of the surface level. We break the whole drain down into different branches and intervals, and we work along from there as we go. And if there was any questions, I could look at something in specific, but that's an overview of the whole methodology for assessing out a drain like this.
I don't see it on my written notes here. If there are questions of the engineering's report, I see questions later. Is that of the engineering report? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Curtis. Obviously, my finger isn't used to this. I appreciate the description, and I do have a question for later after the other members have a chance to raise questions as well. Appeals. The notice of sitting of Court of Revision was mailed to landowners on May the 1st, 2025, pursuant to Section 52, subsection 1 of the Drainage Act. Written appeals were to be received by the municipal clerk at least 10 days prior to the date of the Court of Revision. The municipal clerk has at this time received no written appeals. At this time, I would ask if there are any individuals present who would like to appeal the assessment schedule for the Nicholas Municipal Drain 2025. If yes, not seeing any, but if there was someone, the Court of Revision may choose to hear this appeal, and if that was the case, I don't see any, and so thank you. I will continue moving through the agenda as provided. Now comes to the section that I was trying to move a little more quickly to. Is there questions from the members? Yes, Councillor Dunstall.
Thank you, through you, Acting Chair. I was just wondering hold on one second here. The environmental concerns, are there any for the ecosystems and that kind of stuff? And what is it that you do to mitigate that?
Yeah, through the chair. The main environmental concern, I would say, would be fisheries. There is a portion of existing open ditch on this drain. I don't think I left it back here. It's pretty much at the bottom end of the drain. I don't think this will actually work on the screen. It kind of does. Basically, at the very bottom end of the drain, there is an open ditch. When we are proposing to enclose an open ditch under the Drainage Act, what we do is we file an application to the Departments of Fisheries and Oceans, and they do a review. They have mapping which shows what kind of species at risk could be in a certain area. Not for a small ditch like this, but maybe the Quincy drain, maybe whatever tributary, whatever's further downstream. I don't know if it gets to the Nith. They review that, and in this case, they didn't have to come out, but in some cases, they will come out and we do a site walk with them to take a look at the conditions. A lot of times, if they observe that the ditch dries up at a certain point in the summer, that it won't be the habitat for the species at risk that they might be considering. I shouldn't speak. I'm not an expert on that. I defer to them. But we have to apply to them, and then we get a letter of advice. So if there was species at risk that we were going to be potentially hurting by the proposing to enclose it, we would have to go a letter of credit, and we'd have to go through the whole Fisheries Act authorization process. But this is just a letter of advice. They just tell us that we need to work outside of the March 15th to July 15th timing window. That's the spawning window for many species in this area. Work when the conditions are dry, have a mitigation plan for sediments and stuff like that. So they give a list of stuff for us to make sure we do. Other than that, I wouldn't say, in some cases there might be, that's aquatic species at risk. There might be other species at risk as well, but not so much in most of these it's a tile going through farm fields, which we are already farming over anyways. So, nothing really more than that. I think there was a question at the consideration meeting. I watched the meeting that John presented for me about, I think the question that maybe you got from a ratepayer was about groundwater level. And so I was sitting there thinking about how I'd answer it, so tile drains really only have an impact area that spans maybe 10 meters out from that drain, and it kind of the groundwater impact is kind of like a curve. If the surface is up here and the tile's down here, the actual groundwater impact as you get further away is less and less and less. And that's why, as we systematically tile our fields, that they're spaced at 20 feet or something, because you get too far away and it doesn't doing anything. So if there was a question raised to council about that, I know John answered it, but I just thought maybe I had a little different take, is that the impact to groundwater is very local, but there already is a tile there to begin with, so the impact to groundwater levels is really the same as what it is there right now. We just have a larger tile. So, yep.
I'm taking the advantage of being here as a learning process for myself. First time I've sat on one of these, and I'm curious about some things. You say the estimated cost $830,000. So how and I don't need the long explanation on how you come up with the number, but so does this drain go out to tender then? Is that how this will work? And plus or minus, where would you be? Like, where do you be on this when it comes to tender? And does the township do any of this work? When they're doing road crossings, and the county will do road crossings, they take that into account as well.
Yeah.
But this goes to tender, I take it?
Good questions, and I got answers for them all. So yes, it goes to tender, and myself and the Township of Wilmot have the tender pretty much drafted, ready to go, and it probably will go out this week. We have a collection. It's going to go on bids and tenders, so anyone will see it. But I would say in a drain this size, there's probably a collection of about 3 or 4 drain contractors who I would expect to see, and I probably will reach out to them separately to make sure that they see it as well. So that's that. Yes, it will go to tender, and there's whatever, it's going to be like 3 weeks or so. Municipalities doing any of the work themselves. East Sora actually always does ask for a clause put in the tender, for a provision put in the tender, so that if the price is unfavorable, that they may be able to do the work with their own forces. That clause, I worked with Claire Orling at the township, and that clause is added into this tender. I wouldn't say that in years past that the Township of East Sora has taken that up that often. Crews are usually busy anyways, but it's there. It's there in the case for East Sora, because it's gravel road, and the township crews can do that. Neither townships have the ability to do the crossings of the paved roads, and neither townships have the ability to do tile drain installation. It's a specialized wheel machine that only a few contractors have that pretty much use that. And the middle question you have, I've forgotten now.
Plus or minus on the tender. That's right.
Okay, so it's gonna sound like a gloat, but I track all of my projects that I've had, the last 25 jobs I've had, and some of them do come over, but the vast majority of them end up around 93, 94, 95% of my estimate. So I feel confident, because it's also not a job that generally has a lot of, like, this is all normal work for us. We are very used to pricing, and we have a lot of data points for pricing tile. The one thing that I don't have data points is Wilmot has asked to, Wilmot Public Works has asked to put in plastic pipe across the road, and it's done in a different method than what we normally do, jack and bore versus directional drilling. I don't have great data points on that. They are special assessments. So as I mentioned at the beginning, all the increased cost for road work gets assessed directly to the road. If it's a higher price, and that's what Public Works wants as their method, well, that cost goes to the township. So it kind of comes off, and it's, I mean, it still looks like it could be higher than, over 830,000, but when you actually look at the prorating factor, what prorates to the landowners would take off those kind of increased costs for something that was like the directional drilling that I might not have a great estimate on. But generally, your question was, is it plus or minus? It should be pretty close. But watch I say that now and be confident in it, and then things are different, but it has been that way.
Councillor Dunstall, or do you have a follow-up? Okay. Go ahead.
So this drain starts, the idea of this drain starts with someone approaching the township.
Yep.
One property owner approaches the township and said, we're having some issues, what are the chances of improving this drain? And then you go out and contact the other property owners where this drain would be. And because reading through this, it looks like I'm going, like everybody's on board with this. Like for my personal thing, and I know I can ask John, but is that normal? Is this kind of an exception that everybody wanted to be on board? And like I personally, I used to farm. I understand the benefits of this kind of thing, but it just kind of surprised me that everybody seemed to want, yep, this is a good idea, let's get going with this. So.
It's through the chair. It's generally normal around here. Oxford County, Region of Waterloo, value of farming is very high. The value placed on drainage is very high. So generally around here, it is quite normal that most of the farmers would be on board with it. Our company does work as far north as West Nipissing. You can be up there and have one farmer who really wants to do something and 8 more who are status quo. So it's definitely different in different areas of the province. This job did start with one owner having a drainage issue. The very first meeting, we invite all the neighbors that would be on that drain and get them, first the owner who's got the problem to mention what they want, what their issue is, but then all the rest of them are usually like, yeah, you know what, I'm having problems there too, let's extend it. So this one, it started in the end of 2020, and it did take me this long to it took a while because I knew there was a lot of drainage issues in this watershed, and you just kind of had to keep pushing it along. And I'm not twisting anyone's arm at all, but it's about getting the meetings and making sure that people have informed information in order to make their decision. A lot of people are also sitting on the fence like, I want to do something, but can you come back with some estimate of costs for me? So when I get that to them, then they sign the petition as well. Like they have to follow through the petition process. So I think we had to come back to council here about 4 times with different petitions in order to get to the point where, yeah, everybody in the watershed is pretty much getting drainage out of this. And in this one, wouldn't say that necessarily, I would be a lie to say that everybody in the watershed necessarily wanted this, but many do, as a point of all the petitions. There's 5 or 6 of them, so many do want it, and then there are many others who also recognize that this is the process and their water drains across to their neighbor's property, and okay, so as evidence why there's no one here fighting it today. There are many people who just recognize as well that this is how it goes, and they have other properties. Some farmers might be up on the top of the hill and draining water off their property and be just fine for this one, no problems for me, but they might also have another farm around the corner where they're at the bottom of the hill and all of their neighbor's water comes onto their property, and so it's a give and take in a lot of cases. They recognize that.
Thank you. Through Chair. Do you have a vendor scorecard, or is this strictly done by price when you award your contract? Is it strictly on price? Is there some kind of vendor scorecard where you look at experience or recommend that kind of thing, or is it 100% lowest bid gets the job?
Tenders are tricky. Yes, there's not an exact scorecard. There's not a scoring system for this tender. Trying to think about it because I've been working on 3 tenders this week, so I'm trying to think of which one that Wilmot's is. We always have them list their experience, and there's always a clause in there that if they do not present information to show they are qualified to do this work, that the township can reject their bid. And recently had to do that in Wellesley Township. Just earlier this year, and it was the first time I had to do that. I had to make sure all our T's were crossed and I's were dotted, but we did have to reject a bid because I did not, in speaking to that contractor, speaking to the references that they listed, it just was not demonstrated that they knew what they were doing, and they even really, yeah, they have never done any of this at all, and they didn't really even know what they were bidding on when I was talking to the guy. I think they were just putting out bids. So that can happen, doesn't usually happen. Might start happening more now that we put stuff on bids and tenders and anybody can get access to it, which is a plus and a minus. You know, you can get a lot of different contractors getting access to it, but for our drains, probably honestly rather more just the people that I know do the work, but it's out there. But it will be the lowest price unless they do not demonstrate, the lowest bidder does not demonstrate they can do the work. Yeah.
I have a question. So I guess going back to assessment, that's maybe segues from the question you had earlier. If there's an open ditch and a landowner would like it to be enclosed, how is that handled in terms of assessing the cost? Because it might be historic and open ditch and now he wants it enclosed, and I think that was the case on part of this as well.
Yeah. Another excellent question. It can vary. A lot of assessments, like I try to, we and myself try to make it as formulated and you know, as constant across the job as I can for it not to be subjective. The goal is not to just be sitting on what the engineer feels, but it can very much vary for enclosing ditches. Around the corner from this job was a drain called the Delton Rivaling Drain. I did it a couple of years ago. That drain was entirely an open ditch drain, and one owner was the initiator and was benefiting from closing in their section of the ditch. I assessed it a fair bit higher to that owner because the rest of the drain was an open ditch drain, and that this owner was gaining the most significant benefit. Everyone else is just along for the ride. The most significant benefit from the ditch being enclosed. So I think honestly I had in that interval for the ditch being enclosed on the Delton Rivaling Drain, I think I probably assessed it close to 80% to that owner, 20% to the upstream watershed. On this job for the Nicholas Drain, I did not use that same approach. Other than the last 200 meters on the Bender property in Eastward Tavistock, all the rest of the drain is tile drain. For some reason, when they put the tile drain in 1958, they stopped partway through the Bender farm and didn't keep going. And so I kind of view it with a different lens, that we are doing the whole rest of the watershed, we're doing 3 kilometers of tile drain upstream. Would I really make the Benders pay 80% of enclosing this ditch when we're doing the drain through the whole watershed and the whole rest of the watershed is tile drain? So I applied it more, I think it was a 60-40, like as in 60% of the cost in that interval was assessed as benefit, as opposed to an 80-20. So that was just a different lens that I took on it based on the conditions of that specific drain, and that you have to kind of go from case to case. And, you know, as I build more experiences, and going forward, I'll kind of apply the same ones going forward. And that's kind of, the goal is for it to be somewhat predictable. I did get that question from these owners because a lot of them are the same owners, and they wondered why one might have paid a lot more, and I did explain that to them. That's why I viewed it a higher benefit in the previous job than this one. Whether that sat with everybody, I don't know, but that was my decision. It can be challenged for sure, but that was what I took to it.
Thank you, Curtis. Is there any other questions from members? I believe, or just for my interest, are you a landowner? Do you have any questions? Okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So I don't think anybody's online that would have any questions, so I think we can bypass that, no questions from landowners. Now, I'm looking for a mover and a seconder to approve this schedule of assessment as presented. So I see Councillor Dunstall and Deputy Mayor Smith moved and seconded it. The motion, I'll get to the wording of the motion, that the Court of Revision approves the schedule of assessment as outlined in the report prepared by Curtis McIntyre of K. Smart and Associates, dated February 28, 2025, for the Nicholas Municipal Drain 2025. And I guess I should have asked the clerk if I have the right to vote on this. Okay, thank you. I don't have strong chairman powers. All those in favor? That's carried unanimously. Now we're looking for a mover and a seconder to adjourn the meeting. So moved by Deputy Mayor Smith and seconded by Councillor Dunstall. I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that carries unanimously. Thank you, everyone, for your participation. And I learned excellent report, Mr. McIntyre. I think I used it as a learning opportunity as well.